Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Instant Camera Guy, where I am going to be continuing my topic of how to replace the non-user replaceable batteries found in modern I-type Polaroid cameras. This video is, like usual, going to be partly a discussion on how to do this, but also a discussion on why it's incredibly irritating that we have to take apart the entire camera to access a part that is difficult to replace, as if they wanted the camera to die and for you to buy a new one after 7 years or so. These two cameras were sent to me by a client of mine from the USA. We have here one Polaroid Onestep2 and a Polaroid Onestep Plus. Introduced in around 2017, I think the Plus came out a year or so later. These are cameras that I actually quite like. I think of all the I-type cameras, these ones represent a true sort of they're like a very good throwback to the retro design. I like how square and chunky they are. I quite like how they perform. But as with all other current I-type cameras, I do not like the battery situation very much. As with the other models, it is baked in, it sits around here underneath the viewfinder, and it is not accessible to the general public. To access it, we're going to have to take the entire thing apart, and to replace it, we're going to be snipping some wires and using a soldering iron. All skills that I firmly believe are beyond the reach of the average Joe who has picked this up from Target and just wants to take a few photos. Now, whenever I make these kind of I-type videos, I will inevitably get some smooth brain comments in the comment section below, and so I figured, why not preemptively take care of that for you guys, and I will just do the job for you. So here we go. Here we go again. It's that Australian guy who hates Polaroid! Exclamation mark. This guy is such a shill. All he wants is for you to have an SX70 serviced by him. He's so negative and bitter. Cannot believe how much he complains. Hate him so much. He's always saying how bad the new cameras are. 0 out of 10, would not watch, downvoted, dislike, unsubscribe. Alright, with all of that out of the way, oh hang on 1 second. Now allow me to present you with 5 straw man arguments about how the old 600 film batteries that Polaroid used were also super wasteful, and like phones do this too, so it's not that bad, hey. Right? All out of the way, have I given you an example of the kind of comments that I'm going to end up getting in this video? I would just like to point out, before I continue any further, that I have a brain that allows me to process nuance. And as such, it is actually possible, believe it or not. I know in today's modern society, which is very divisive, and it seems we either have to pick one side of a political spectrum or pick one brand. You know, we have to pick a certain side that we fall on. I know that might sound shocking to you, but I'm here to say that it is actually possible to love Polaroid, to love the modern company, and be so proud of their achievements to bringing back instant film. To have gone from, you know, the impossible project to reliable, consistent film that we can use in 600 and SX70 cameras. And I just want to reiterate, it is so possible to love everything that this company does, to love the film, to love the color contrast, to love the Polaroid community, and still be critical of the shit design of its modern I-type cameras. These two things are not mutually exclusive. I do these videos from a place of love. Polaroid, for the love of God and the love of Edwin Land, please make these cameras better. I'm so sick of doing these videos. I'd also like to point out, as a repair technician, I'm getting paid for fixing this stuff, right? I am financially benefiting right now from opening this thing up and swapping out the batteries, and I still wish that I didn't have to do this, because a battery is a known consumable part. We know it's eventually going to die, so don't make it difficult to replace. It's as simple as that. Now, in my last video that I made on this subject, someone actually made a comment and said that, they thought that my constant harping about the built-in batteries was largely overblown and that it wasn't as big an issue. And I have to respectfully disagree. As a technician, I'm asked by many people, every month I get inquiries basically about fixing old I-type cameras, whether it be the old Impossible i1 or an Instant Lab or a Polaroid Now or a Polaroid Onestep2. I get asked all the time, and that is simply because many of these things will be dying by now, if they haven't already, or if they hadn't years ago. And if they're not currently dead, well, they're likely going to die sometime soon. And a lot of those inquiries that I get, people are unwilling to spend the money because it was a cheap camera to begin with. If someone bought this thing for $120 US, they don't want to spend, nearly that total amount having a battery replaced when they can buy the new Polaroid, now Gen 3 for basically the same price. I see that conversation all the time, and it's actually fairly uncommon that I will have someone go, hey, can you fix this? And then I say, well, yeah, actually I can. And they actually go through with sending it to me, because most people just don't want to pay the price. And that means that for most people, they are sitting them on a shelf on display, which is basically a form of purgatory between being used and being thrown in the trash. God knows how many Polaroid cameras like this have been thrown into the bin because they've simply stopped working and people didn't know that you could fix it, or because Polaroid has gone, well, your 1 year of warranty is up, you're on your own, by the way, have you considered buying a new camera? It is a huge issue, and probably one that you don't realize is such a huge issue until you fix these things for a living, like I do. Anyway, it's just really annoying. I will keep saying this until Polaroid start making cameras with built-in user-replaceable batteries, because guys, it isn't that hard. I do it all the time when I modify SX70s to take my PolaVolt battery solution. There are so many hard cells out there that are rechargeable that you could be using. Even Fuji Instax cameras have user-replaceable batteries. But anyway, let's get to actually fixing this. I am going to start with this little guy here. Now, one of the positive things to fixing one of the Onestep2s is, provided you know how to use a soldering iron, and I'm going to go into why you need a soldering iron in just a minute. Technically, you don't need a soldering iron, but we'll cover that point very shortly. One advantage is you can open one of these things up with just a regular Phillips head screwdriver, and once you're in, all the screws are the same size, everything's very, very uniform inside, and that actually does make taking this apart a heck of a lot easier. I've just got a little old battery box here that I'm going to use to put screws in. And yeah, we're going to need to take quite a few bits and pieces off of this. From memory, we pretty much have to disassemble the entire thing. I'm going to start with the bottom of the camera. But yeah, it was at least nice enough of Polaroid to make all the screws the same size. So once the two bottom screws are off, you can slide. You should be able to. I think it's clipped in place. The bottom should basically slide off at the rear. I might need to jimmy the... There we go. Like so. So we can put that to the side. This does give you access to the mirror and things like that once you're inside. There are two screws at the back. So again, we're going to remove those. Now, I'm probably going to make a mistake here. It's been a while, it's been a few months since I've been inside one of these, and like I just explained, it's actually, although I get asked to fix these all the time, I would say the majority of my clients actually don't end up going through with it. Because there's like a logical fallacy, right? They don't see it as being worth repairing because they've, you know, paid very little to buy the camera. These are not expensive cameras. And so thus they don't think it's worth repairing. Which, like, I kind of get where that line of thinking comes from, but it's a flawed line of thinking. All right, taking the door off. I can't remember if I need to take the door off. I do believe that I actually do, because that's going to give much easier access to the 4 screws at the bottom here. I'm going to focus mainly on taking the front panel off. I don't believe I need to undo these screws because that's for the inside mirror housing. And they do look like slightly smaller screws, so we're just going to focus on the outside perimeter screws for now. As I said, if I make a mistake here, I'll just keep going. And I'll flash a little thing on the screen saying, oh, actually don't do this step. Now what I'm going to do, just to keep everything together, I'm going to put the door back on. I know this sounds counterproductive, but it's just easier this way. Now you can probably also, if you had a longer screwdriver than what I'm using, you probably don't need to take the door off to do this step. You can probably just angle the screwdriver in there. One of the things that I did just off, like without thinking there, without explaining myself, if you twist anti-clockwise on the front ring, the plastic piece pops off. And we should now be able to unclip the plastic fascia here. So I'm just going to use just a screwdriver here. I think there's about 3 clips or so from both sides. I'm going to undo the sides first. Here we go. So that's coming up. And, oops, wrong screwdriver. Yeah, there we go. And to Polaroid's credit, this actually comes off easier. Easier than most other I-type cameras. Some I-type cameras are very, very difficult to get components off of. All right, so we've taken out the 2 screws at the bottom. Now there are a few screws now we need to take out that basically hold they not only hold these PCBs down, but they also hold the rear panel on. We can see the connector for the battery just hiding out down here. Effectively, we just need to slide the rest of this panel off and we can get inside. So, not all of these screws need to be removed. I believe it's only the outer screws that we need to, but if anything starts to feel like I'm having to force it, I'll just simply remove more screws. But I believe the one under the viewfinder here, we have to get rid of that. Easy. I believe the one lower down as well. I'm effectively just looking for screws that seem attached to the plastic underneath, along the sides. All right. And then with this side, I think it's just the screw immediately under the flash that we have to remove. I don't believe there's another. I could be wrong. I'm going to find out very soon if I'm wrong about that. I just simply can't remember. Don't think I need to remove those 2. Are there any other screws hiding? Oh no. So next to the ribbon cable down here, there's a screw there. I believe we also do have to remove that. So the one under the flash and the one next to that little ribbon cable. does this want to... Yes. Okay, so it's coming free on one side. Ah. Just under that viewfinder, to the side of the yellow switch, there's one more. So it's, I think, 5 screws that we have to undo. That should be it, surely. Surely there's no more. Oh, and there's one under that. It's black, so it's hard to see. Alright. Now I can take that back. Okay, so the one at the bottom of the PCB did not need to be removed. In fact, both screws on the side of the viewfinder don't need to be removed. That was my mistake. It's the ones next to them which are black like the plastic, so I didn't immediately see them. So I'll just put those PCB screws back. They're all the same in terms of size. Okay, now we have access to our little battery, and now I'm going to talk a bit about why we need a soldering iron here. And that is because the type of battery that Polaroid uses, which is just a little pouch cell lithium-ion polymer battery, the connection on this battery is fairly atypical. It is a JST connector, but it is a mini JST connector. Now, when I say atypical, that is because, like, I have a selection of batteries here. These are all like third-party cells that I've purchased from like AliExpress. And effectively, these all have a bigger type of connection from memory. So let's just... Yeah. So this is basically the... In my left hand here, this is the size of connector that you'll get on standard off-the-shelf lithium-ion batteries, lithium-ion pouch cells. This is the type of connector that Polaroid has used. It is the miniature version of that. It's very hard to find LiPo cells, I find, that have this connector from factory. Now, there is actually room here to put the larger connector, but Polaroid has still opted to use the smaller one. If we have a look at this battery as well, we can see it's puffed up quite a bit. It's not completely turned spicy pillow just yet, but it is certainly larger than the replacement that I'm going to use. The replacement that I'm using is a 10-20-45. It's about 900 milliamp hours. The original battery that's in here is rated at 1100 milliamp hours. The 200 milliamp hour difference isn't realistically going to make a difference. They're very, very close in terms of maximum capacity. And I tend to find that Polaroid I-type batteries seem to be overrated in terms of the milliamp hours. I find it very difficult to find a battery online of this exact dimension, which is anywhere close to being 1100. 900 is as close as I've been able to get. And these batteries are effectively the same size. You know, just the new one's slightly less puffy. So I don't know if Polaroid's battery supply is doing them a dodgy, or maybe these batteries are just made of insanely high-quality lithium-ion polymers. I don't know, but either way, 900 milliamp hours is going to work fine. What I'm going to do is cut the leads from this original battery so that we can make an adapter of sorts. So we are going to be soldering in a full-size JST connector to the end of these leads, and that means that in the future, when we need to do this again, all it'll be is a matter of plug and play. Take the screws out, plug and play the battery, and away you go. Much better than having to break out the soldering iron each time, or hunting to the ends of the earth to find the right connector. I'm going to hit pause there, because my camera's about to die, and I'll be right back. Alright, the first thing that I'm going to do is liberate the wires from the old battery. Now, if you are going to attempt this at home, be sure not to touch positive and negative together. So you can see that I'm cutting the wires one at a time. And I'm going to use some sticky tape just to secure the loose wire down. Now that is so that I'm better safe than sorry. I do not want those to touch each other and short circuit the battery and, cause mischief. So I'm just going to be excessively safe there. And that leaves us with these two wires and the original mini little JST connection. And that pretty much means that we're going to be able to turn this into an adapter. So I am going to just plug this back in. The plug only goes in one way, so you don't need to worry too much about the positive and negative wires. And what we are going to do now is I'm going to grab the corresponding JST connector to my new battery. So I'm going to take one from the set. This I just bought at my local electronics store. It's got oodles of different JST connectors in it. One thing that I'm just going to do, I always like to double check polarity using the wires, and I like to just mark on the side of the socket that we're going to be using, I like to mark where the black wire is going to go just with a bit of black Sharpie, because I'm not going to do the soldering attached directly to this battery. I'm going to do it just using this set of leads. So what I'm going to do, once I strip back these two wires, the way that I'm going to solder this onto the little socket, these extra leads that are hanging off are going to act as a heat sink, because if you just take this socket and try solder directly to it, it's going to melt everything. You really do need to attach some wire in the form of the plug that goes into that socket to take the heat away from the socket, or else everything's just going to get destroyed. So I like to just use blue tack to hold things in place, like some sticky tack. Someone commented the other day and said, you know, I have so many various different bits and pieces for repair. Why don't I have the third hand tool, you know, those sort of claws for soldering stuff? And there is a very simple answer to that. I hate them. I really don't like using them. They're very fiddly. They take up a lot of bench space. They're faff to, you know, get everything together. Blue tack is malleable and it's insanely cheap, and I just stick it to the top of my work lamp when I'm done, and then I just take it off when I need it again. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of using those little claw tools. I've owned them in the past. I just never liked using them. So that is why you don't see me use them. Now I'm just stripping back the wires. All right, and we're going to tin the wires here, like so. And then I'm just going to trim them back because they do not need to be that long. Now we can take the tinned socket, which is still held onto its wires here, right? And we're going to just solder that to the wires. Now remember that I've marked the socket just in case, but also because it's attached to wires, we do know that everything is in the right orientation. And before we do that, we will just need some heat shrink so that we can make sure that nothing short circuits. So I'm just going to dive into my little heat shrink tub here, and we'll grab some small bits of heat shrink. Just like so. And now we can feed them onto those bits of wire, ready to solder on to the socket. So I'm just going to do the black one first. I also just want to take this moment to address something that often comes up in the comment section. Every now and again I'll get people say, oh, you know, would you mind doing a close-up? I can't really see what it is that you're doing. Guys, this is 2 wires. If you need like a macro close-up to solder these 2 parts together, like, you probably shouldn't be doing this repair. Like in some of my more complicated videos, I've done close-up B-roll and stuff. It takes a lot of extra time to edit, and like I said, really, like, this is incredibly simple. I could basically just verbally describe what it is that I'm doing, and if you know how to use a soldering iron, that should be enough. But yeah, sometimes I'll get, oh, do you, can I see you join the wires together? Guys, you should know what soldered wires look like. If you don't, you shouldn't be soldering. But I will give you guys a close-up little view. All right. So there we go. Those wires are now attached to the socket. Now we can probably just make this easier if I take the whole plug off. And what I can now do is just using a little cigarette lighter, just melt that heat shrink. Also, fun fact, I have never paid for a cigarette lighter in my life. I find them on the side of the road all the time. And every time I found one, it's been full of gas. I have so many of them. Haven't paid for one. They last such a long time. Like, I don't know how they managed to cram so much butane into one of these little beak lighters. But I'm a big fan of them. They're just very, very elegant, simple design. All right. So yeah, we're basically done. Now we can take our heatsink leads away. And now we are ready to install, one of our replacement batteries. Now these batteries should be fairly charged. But obviously we're going to plug this thing in once it's finished and make sure that everything is charged. So we can basically put this back now. I like to just get the battery leads. There's a little piece of tape that holds the battery down. And we just want to basically just tuck the leads in as best as we possibly can. That's fine. And then we can just hold everything down like so. And yeah, as you can see, there's plenty of room for the socket to fit. Right, there's heaps of room on the side of this for everything to fit in place. So now what we'll do is put the body shell back in place and put all the screws in. To do so is just going to be the reverse of everything that we did before. Right, so the 2 screws on the outer side, those 2 screws on the side of the PCB just under the flash, 2 at the rear, and I'll take the door panel off and put in those 2 at the front. And then we can probably put this body panel on. Although, actually, I probably won't have to take the door panel off. I did that at the start to get access to these 2 screws, but I've since realized that with the bottom panel off, that gives me all the access I need. So I'll likely just reassemble this in a different order. Alright, we have a working camera. Everything is turning on as expected. I think the flash is charging. Yep. There we go. It's back to life, guys. Well, there you have it. A slightly easier I-type conversion. As I said, still pretty much requires the use of a soldering iron unless you get insanely lucky and happen to find the exact mini JST connector. Like I stated, pretty much every battery that you'll find on eBay, Amazon, AliExpress either will come with no leads or will come with a standard JST connector. It's very uncommon to find them in the mini variant, meaning that this isn't exactly a plug and play modification. But to Polaroid's credit, at least they were nice enough to make all the screws a uniform design and to only use 3 clips plus 2 screws to hold on the front fascia, making this much more friendly than other I-type conversions. Anyway, that pretty much does it for this video. The Polaroid Onestep Plus is effectively the exact same technique. Just make sure that when you are taking off the top housing that you clear the little focus switch that's at the top. Otherwise, it is the same method, same battery, etc. inside. Polaroid, if you are watching, please do something about your built-in lithium-ion battery design. And if anyone out there is watching that owns a Polaroid Onestep Plus or Onestep 2 that no longer works, swapping the battery will likely bring it back to life. As always, I have been your friendly neighborhood instant camera guy. If you like what it is that I do, I would appreciate your support. Chuck the video a like, give us a subscribe, or feel free to use the links down below to donate me a coffee or a beer or whatever you see fit. Alternatively, you could send in a camera to me to get repaired. I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a wonderful day.